Go to Jodey Arrington, the Texas Congressman, House Budget Committee Chairman, House Ways and Means Committee member, so a key player in all of this. Congressman, always good to have you, and thank you for taking the time.
Good to be with you.
The fact of the matter is, people like Warren Buffett has said over the weekend that, the government's going to just have to raise taxes, that it doesn't have the inherent ability to keep an eye on spending, so the only other alternative is to raise taxes. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think Mr. Buffett has looked at our balance sheet and dug into our spending as a nation. We are spending $240 billion a year on wasteful and fraudulent spending within entitlements. And that's over the 10-year budget windows more than the entire Russian economy. That's just one area. We're having a hearing tomorrow on the cost of the border chaos. It's $150 billion. It's healthcare cost, it's education cost, it's criminal justice cost. And so I would suggest that this government is way too big, and that this spending now that we're on, which is over $6 trillion, and a third of which is borrowed at about $2 trillion a year now, that'll double in 10 years. And then our interest payments are now the third largest expenditure item in the budget, and that is $870 billion, which is more than we spend on national defense. I would suggest our spending is out of control, which is driving the unsustainable debt. And we also have to address the insolvency and unsustainability of those important safety nets for seniors that you mentioned earlier in the program.
Now, I do know that President Trump has said, and especially if he gets back into the White House, he's not too keen and aggressively going after entitlements, even though at another event he did talk about the possibility down the road we might be having to do that. Is that inevitable?
Inevitable, full stop. 80% of our budget in 10 years will be on auto spend. Those are mandatory spending programs. Those are entitlements, and they are the drivers: health care, welfare, and other mandatory programs. You can't save this country from the inevitable debt calamity if you don't address these entitlements. And there's a tremendous amount of waste. There are common sense solutions like welfare reforms, just work requirements that we have in, say, TANF and food stamps. Apply that to Medicaid. You're talking about tens of billions of dollars. I could dig into it in specifics, but you can't get there from here, as we say in Texas, in terms of staving off the debt crisis, strengthening the balance sheet, and growing our economy without dealing with those entitlement programs.
Where do you see all of this going, Congressman? I know because next year those Trump tax cuts expire. If he were to be elected president and he was working with a Republican Congress, they might be, renewed again. But if it's a mixed government situation, especially if Joe Biden is reelected, that is highly unlikely. Your thoughts?
If it's Joe Biden, we already know the playbook because he submitted his budget, and his budget doubles down on the cradle-to-grave welfare expansion. He doubles down on expanding mandatory spending by almost $3 trillion. He also doubles down on taxes and regulations and the things that are suppressing our growth. President Trump will bring a pro-growth agenda. And Neil, here's what I'd tell you and your viewers. If we can just grow 1% over the 2% that CBO projects over the 10-year budget window, just 1%, that will bring down the deficit by $3 trillion. But we have to link that with mandatory spending reforms and reining in the spending. And we have to be able to grow the economy faster than we're spending, faster than we're borrowing. If we do that, just like our forefathers after World War II did it, we can bring the debt to GDP down, and we can have our best and brightest economic days ahead of us.
All right, well, watch it very closely, Chairman. You'll have your work cut out for you, but you have, to your credit, been warning about a lot of this stuff long before, so we'll see what happens. Jodey Arrington, the House Budget Committee Chairman, sits on the House Ways and Means Committee and knows full well the numbers he and his colleagues are facing if they're up to facing it.